channel. In this video today, we're going to be going over the Stamina Necro for Stonethorn patch. Now, I absolutely love some of the changes to the armors that they've made. Some of them not so much. Some of them I absolutely love. Now, let's just go ahead and get into it. Like, I really don't know what to say. So, maximum health is 17.2. Maximum stamina is 33.8. My stamina recovery is 1.2 unbuffed, and my weapon damage is 3k unbuffed. Weapon crit is 49%. Now, keep in mind, I am a Khajiit, so you might have to change some points around, especially if you don't have your Undaunted passives. You definitely want to be around that 16.5 to 17.5. You know, as a DPS, you really don't need any more than that, unless you just feel comfortable with that, but you really don't need any more than that. Now, once you get your Undaunted passives, it's a whole lot easier, but up until then, you may want to use like blue food or put like a health enchant on a big piece of armor. So, but anyway, I have 64 points into stamina. The food that I'm running is Dubious Camoran, and the boon that I'm running is the Shadow. Now, champion points. Go ahead and go over a little bit. I have 18 in the Warlord, 37 Sprinter, 9 Bashing Focus, 64 Tenacity, 64 Mooncalf, 34 Shadow Ward, 44 Tumbling. Now, when it comes to the green tree, as you're leveling up, the first two you want to focus on is Tenacity and the Mooncalf. These are the first two. Mostly, Mooncalf is your first one, and then Tenacity. You can either take them up together, or you can just put 64 points into Mooncalf, and then go 64 points into Tenacity, whichever way you want to do it. Now, after these two, this is where it becomes kind of a dealer's choice. You can either put points into Warlord, Sprinter, or even Bashing Focus. I mean, you don't have to really have anything into Bashing Focus. I just put a few points there because I do tend to bash a lot. It's kind of a habit as a tank. As somebody who tanks mostly, it kind of just, that little extra cost kind of helps out. So, you know, you can put some here if you run a lot. You know, if you're always running through dungeons, Sprinter comes in handy. Same thing with Warlord when you have to break free. But, now those are all fine and dandy. Now, Shadow Ward and Tumbling, it reduces your roll dodge and your block. You know, roll dodge is okay, but block is another thing. But what the main reason why we have so many points in this tree is due to the passive from Treasure Hunter. This will increase the quality of items you find in treasure chests. Now, a simple chest you can get a really good item out of. You can even get multiple items out of chests. This is really great to have, and once you get to the point where you have spare CP points, I highly recommend getting this unlocked. So 75 points, you can have these set up anyway, and in any of these, you know, if you want to reduce the cost of your sneak, you can put some there, but just have 75 points here so you can get this. This is great to have. So after you get these two, you can either go straight for the Treasure Hunter to increase the items that you get from this works in dungeons, overlands, trials, you know, and delves, doesn't matter. Wherever you pop a chest, you have a better chance of getting items out of it. So, or you can go in for the more break free sprint, you know, whatever you want to do here. That's up to you. Now, blue tree, we have nothing there. We have 19 Physical Weapon Expert, 51 Master at Arms, 51 Thermometer, 61 Precise Strike, 24 Piercing, and 64 Mighty. Now, in the blue tree, your first two, the main two, Precise Strike and Mighty. After that, Master at Arms, because we have a lot of direct damage attacks. So, and then Thermometer, you know, you want that to at least 40, and then Piercing and Physical Weapon Expert can be whatever. You can lower this if you want to put more points here, more points there, or increase your light attacks damage a little more. If you're a werewolf, I would definitely focus on Physical Weapon Expert a little more. But over Thermometer, you know, or Precising, whatever, it's dealer's choice. But the main ones is Precise Strike and Mighty, followed by Thermometer and Master at Arms. Both them two are pretty much equal. So you can either just fill out your points here into you know, 61, 64, and then even out between Thermometer and Master at Arms, or just do one or the other. That is up to you. Red, we have 28 Ironclad, 36 Medium Armor Focus, 35 Spell Shield, 64 Hardy, 64 Elemental Defender, and 43 Quick Recovery. Now, the main tree line in this one is Hardy and Elemental Defender. Focus on them two first, getting them to 64. Then after that, I would take Ironclad to 28. And then if you want healing, or you know, if you want to increase the healing that you're receiving, you can put some in Quick Recovery. Or if you feel like you really don't need it at all, you can just make yourself more tanky. These are just kind of extra, you know, or you can bump up Ironclad. You can take that up to, I think, like 36, 38, one of those two. But again, that is up to you. But the main ones is Hardy and Elemental Defender first, followed by Ironclad. Those would be the three that I would get to a position to where I feel comfortable with. And then the rest, you know, you can put your other CP points into those as you seem fit. You know, your choice. So, sets, the main thing. Monster set that we're running is Velidreth. I have a medium helmet. It is well fitted with max stamina. You do want divines if you can get it. And we have a light shoulder and divines with max stamina. Now, this is a 6-1 setup. I did have I have the heavy divines. I was running this, but I did not have a medium shoulders for whatever reason. I could not get one. And I busted out a lot of keys, and more so, and this is just some of the ones that I didn't deconstruct. I think I went through about 55 keys, and I could not get a Velidreth medium. I ended up paying 5, going through 40 of, doing the 5 keys for the chest, just for the certain areas. And I finally got a light divines. So I had a medium helmet that was well fitted, so I just threw it on. So you definitely want divines if you can get it. You can transmute it or just keep grinding it. It's whatever. If you have a hard time going through Cradle of Shadows, because Cradle of Shadows on Vet can be relatively difficult, you can go Kraghs if you're just starting out. You get it from Fungol Grotto1, and it gives you some penetration, and it deals some damage as well. It's really nice. And then you have Selenes, which comes from Selenes Web, of course. Sounds a little redundant saying that, but it comes from Selenes Web, and it is a really good set too. Selenes Web, Velidreth is probably the top 2 sets. So it's not that complicated. You can get Selenes relatively easy. Same thing, probably the easier one is Kraghs, starting out at 160 or whatever. And then Velidreth. And then after, when it comes to Velidreth or Selenes, it is just up to you on which one you want to run. It's really close to the DPS, so it's not going to be a huge difference if you pick Selenes over Velidreth or if you pick Velidreth over Selenes. Now, it is quite a bit of difference between Kraghs and those other two, but, it is kind of an easier set to get. It's not as strong. So, but anyways, medium helmet, stamina, divines if you can get it. Divines, medium or heavy shoulders, stamina, you just switch it up. And you can even wear 7 medium. It's not really going to hurt much, but your health will be a little lower. I still like to have at least one, that little 2% from the Undaunted passive. So, now, the first 5-piece set that we're running is an oldie but a goodie. It got a nice buff with Stonethorn, and that is Swamp Raiders. What Swamp Raiders does, well, I didn't really go over Velidreth real quick. Velidreth gives us weapon damage, and when you deal damage, you have a 20% chance to spawn 3 disease spores in front of you after 1 second that deals 13.9 disease damage to the first enemy they hit. This effect can occur once every 8 seconds. I'm sorry. I know I kind of spaced out on that, but I'm just really excited to get to the armor because it definitely brought back some old armor that I really love to use, but just kind of fell off because it just wasn't as strong as the others. So, anyways, Swamp Raider. What this does, it gives us weapon crit, max stamina, weapon damage, and now it adds 579 weapon damage to your poison and disease damage abilities. If you gold this out, which I probably will because it does hit hard, it will give you 600. That's 579 purple. It will be 600 golded out. Now, this used to give us, when it was purple, it was like, I think 388 or 379. It might have been 379 as well. Poison. Now it's also poison and disease. I don't know when they added, I don't think they added disease to it during this patch. It might have been a few patches ago, but I just noticed it myself, and a lot of the abilities from the Necro is poison and disease, but with that 579 alone, without taking it to gold, is more than what you would get from Briarheart, Honey's Rage, New Moon. Doesn't matter. As far as I can tell, this is the most extra damage, weapon damage you can get to your poison and disease abilities. And we have a lot. I think our main 4, our biggest 4 are poison and disease. Endless Hell's physical. I think our Archer is physical, and Barb Trap is physical. I mean, those 3 are the only ones that are physical. Outside of that, your other abilities, all your main spammables and everything, your ultimate is all disease. So this works wonders with it. Now we're running Divine's chest, Divine's waist, Divine's gloves. If you can, Divine's legs, but I have Infuse. Infuse is not bad. as long as it's a big piece, because they did buff infused as well. It's now 21% instead of 17%. So it's quite a bit of extra. And divine boots. Now, you don't want necessarily infused on the feet, gloves, waist, or shoulders, because it's not really going to give you that much. So you definitely want to try to have divines on the smaller pieces, and if one or two of the big pieces are infused, it's not that big of a deal. Now, Shadowfen, Swamp Raider comes from Shadowfen. It is an overland set. The chest, gloves, and legs can come from world bosses or the public dungeon bosses. Waist and the feet come from delves. Very easy to get. There is also, with this next set, this next set is a little difficult to get sometimes, especially in jewelry. So you can run Swamp Raider jewelry, which of course comes from Dolmens. And if you wanted to, weapons, I do believe there is a named axe and a few named daggers, but they do come in sharpened, I think. I do know the dagger is sharpened, or it might be infused, and the axe is either infused or sharpened. So both of them can come in good traits, and they are, I think, quest rewards. So you can make some changes there, and then you just have to pick up a bow. But now, this next, now the weapon here, Maelstorm, infused with a weapon damage enchant. What this is going to do, it's going to increase the damage volley deals by 430 each tick. This bonus increases by 143 every time volley ticks, up to a maximum of 8 times. Maelstorm Arena now drops these weapons. They're no longer, now if you do it on vet, you get perfected. Perfected is pretty good, but in normal, Maelstrom is not really that complicated. It's very easy. Don't let it, I know a lot of people like to talk shit about Maelstrom, especially vet, but normal, it's a completely different ballgame. Don't let it scare you. As soon as you hit 160, or if you're already 160, or higher, get in there and get your normal weapons. This will at least do you until you're comfortable enough or experienced enough to get through Maelstrom vet. And honestly, there's not a huge difference in between the perfected weapons and the non-perfected. So definitely get in there and get your normal weapon. It might take more than one run, but setting aside 20 to 30 minutes a day, or 20 to 30 minutes whenever you get a chance to play, to run a character through it, it definitely it works. Now tanks, it might take you longer, same thing with healers, but a DPS with at least one heal, even if it's vigor, rally, whatever, they have a built-in heal, you should not have any issues getting through it on normal. None. So with that being said, our next 5-piece set comes from Cradle of Shadows as well. It's Widowmaker. Widowmaker got an amazing buff. That's just all it is. It is a buff. We're running a Nern Battle Axe because I like two-handed on my Stem Necro, because I like the execute from the two-handed ability, but you can definitely run dual wield. And this is what I was saying. You would have more crit because you would want dagger axe, so it would probably be a little bit better for crit wise, because I am at 49%. That dagger probably would put you to like 51%. So, but not a huge difference. But I like this. I like dual wielding because I like to execute. So, what Widowmaker does, it comes from Cradle of Shadows. It gives us weapon crit, and max stamina. Now, this is where this set got a buff, was the 5-piece, and it is an amazing buff when you see it. When your alchemy poison fires, you drop a poisonous spore in front of you that bursts after 1 second, dealing 28.3k poison damage over 5 seconds to all enemies within 5 meters. Now, that is crazy. What this set used to do was that when the alchemy poison would fire, it would deal basically 7 to 8k damage to all enemies within 5 meters. Now it's a dot for 5 seconds, and it is almost a 30k dot. Fully buffed, it is really close. Now, you have to run poisons with it because you need alchemy poisons to fire. These are basic poisons, double dot poison. They'll take 1.8k for 3.5 seconds, and another 1.2 for 6.3 seconds. 10-second cooldown. So keep that in mind. This will fire off and go for 5 seconds. The poisons have a 10 seconds, so it's basically a 5-second uptime on Widowmaker and a 5-second downtime because of your alchemy poisons. But that dot is so huge that 5-second downtime isn't that big of a deal. It is massive, and I absolutely love it. I've tried this out in PvP. That second goes off pretty quick, especially when you're fighting in big groups, and it's awesome. I love this in PvE. I've been loving it in PvP. Everywhere I've tried this at, it has done wonders. Now, you can also use crown lethal poisons. If you have a lot of these sitting around, which I kind of do as well, like if you're getting your daily rewards, and let's say even if you're popping crown crates, you should have a ton of these. You know, they come quite a bit. You know, it's 2.5k here, and I've got lethal poisons on other characters as well. You know, and I have a bunch of these left over. Crown Shroud as well. You know, you get a lot of these left over. These do more damage than the other poisons. As you can see, it does 1,886 on the top one, where this one does 1,862. The bottom is 1,209, and the bottom is 1,224. So if you have the lethal poisons and you want to use them, go for it. It does deal more damage, and they both apply the same way. So if you don't have those poisons and you want to get those poisons because you just don't have your alchemy leveled up, you know, you can go right here into crown crates. If you've got some crown gems left over, I've got 159 there, so I can show you. You just buy 3, and it costs you 3 crown gems, and you get 25 poisons. Is it worth it to me? No, not really. Crown gems are a whole lot harder to get than alchemy ingredients to craft your own. But I want to say, I'm not 100% sure, so let's look over here. You should be able to buy some. Yeah, you can buy 80 with 200 crowns, and these can be sent to you. So if you farm a lot, you have that gold. You know, you just, you know, you got gold to spare. You don't know what to do. You can just buy crowns from people at 200 increments and just have them send them to you. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, that's about, what is it, 100 gold a crown. So what is that, 20,000? If I'm, I mean, I might be wrong there, but if I'm not mistaken, you know, 5,000 is 500k. So 200, I think, is like what, 20k. So you can find some people. I do believe that is 20k. 20k can get you 80 of these. So hey, there's plenty of options if you don't have your alchemy leveled up. Or you can just ask a guildmate to do it. You know, if you have the alchemy mats, you should, you know, they should be more than happy to craft it for you without it being a hassle. You know. So Widowmaker, we're running it battle axe jewelry, all robust, all with weapon damage. Now, I will say I am going to transmute these to Bloodthirsty. I will do 2 Bloodthirsty, 1 infused, because I'm absolutely loving this set, and I'm going to transmute it and see how high I can push my DPS with it. With Swamp Raider right now, with Widowmaker, with this setup, on a 3 mil dummy, I'm hitting around 39k. And it's fun. I'm quite enjoying it. So, keep that in mind. With Bloodthirsty and Infused, you will do more damage, period. But don't let the numbers worry you. You know, starting out, you might not be as good. You might need to work on the rotation a little bit, or just work on button mashing, basically. So it is a fun set. These sets are very nice, but like I said, Widowmaker, you have to run, in order to get your jewelry in purple, you have to run vet, or you're going to spend a lot of gold running it on normal to get it blue to increase it. I think Zirconian Greens, at least I know PS4 NA, are around 20 to 25k. Maybe you can get lucky and find somebody selling them for like 18k a piece, but you need 3 each. So you're at least, you know, looking at minimum, you know, 50k to upgrade each one. So that's 150k if you get them in blue and take them to purple. Now, honestly, there's not a huge drop from blue to purple, but, you know, why not? I mean, you can run blue. It's not a huge deal. But if you can get everything in purple, go for it. Swamp Raider jewelry, you know, you can get that purple pretty easily just by doing dolmens. You know, and that's where Treasure Hunter does come in handy too, because when you pop that chest from the dolmen, you have a better chance of getting purple jewelry than you do without Treasure Hunter. So keep that in mind as well. That's why I like Treasure Hunter. So even if you're just running dolmens and you want to farm up and you only have like maybe 70 points to put in that green tree, or 70, you have at least 75 points, take them out and put them in the Treasure Hunter one. Get that Treasure Hunter. At least until you get your jewelry. And then what is it? Like, I think it's like 4k, 4 or 5k there to switch your champion points or redistribution. 3k. So if you got 3k, just yank them on up out of Tenacity here, or Mooncalf, and stick them over here. Get your Treasure Hunter. Then once you get your jewelry, put them back. It's not, you know, it's not going to hurt you that much. Dolmens are, dolmens can be complicated, but they're not that complicated. So Swamp jewelry, get you a couple body pieces and divines. There you go. Because you want to keep this set static at all times because you want that weapon damage at all times. Widowmaker, you can front bar. So if you get the weapons, you know, if you're not having luck with the weapons, or if you want to dual wield, like I said, there's quests you can do for Swamp Raider, and you can get the weapons. And if you ain't got Maelstrom, you know, you can just run Dagger and Axe Swamp Raider with a bow in the back bar. You will still have to keep the poisons equipped. So if you're going to run Widowmaker on the body and stuff like that, because it would probably be easier to get Widowmaker through normal Cradle of Shadows. So you can get that, you can get the body pieces on normal and upgrade them from blue to purple. You know, you will still have to put poisons on the bar. I would leave, you know, you do want the bow infused, so you want the weapon damage enchant, so I would, again, just run the poisons on your front bar. I wouldn't put them on your back bar, because if you run an infused weapon or whatever with a weapon damage enchant, it's still going to be less than what it would be on the bow bar. And you want this over the procs from this. Like, this is just poison damage. This 3.1k just instantly, and this is 1.8 for 3.5 seconds per second, and 1.2 for 6 seconds per second. So you're going to get more damage out of a poison enchant proc, or a absorb stamina, or whatever, or a disease enchant. You're going to get more. So still run them on the front bar, and let your weapon damage enchant on the back bar. But again, the setup, it can be set up whichever way you want, as long as you have Swamp Raider stacked at all times. You can have pieces either which way. So, skills. Venom Skull. I was using Cleave and Wrecking Blow, but after switching over to Swamp Raider, I kind of forced myself to get used to using this skill. And it is nice. It does put out more damage. So, lobbing an Explosive Skull, an enemy dealing 9.3k poison damage. Every third casted ability deals 20% increased damage while slotted. Casting any Necromancer ability while you are in combat will count towards the third cast. Again, this is kind of a pain to get used to. Let me pull these poisons off real quick. I don't want them to proc. Not just yet. We'll go over that here in a second. Alright, come on now. Take me out of combat. There we go. So, it is kind of a pain to time your light attacks in between, but it is worth getting used to. It does kind of take a second to do it. And sometimes I still mess up. You know, I find myself having issues. You know, because it does. Like, I'm sitting here square. It's hard to chain that stuff. And as you can see, you got to be quick. There's just like it does take time, but it is worth getting the hang of it. So, because there was a lot of times at first when I was starting out that I couldn't auto attack, and I would just be doing that, and it started my rotation. I ran out of resources pretty quick, and that's the reason why I switched over to Wrecking Blow or Cleave, depending on what dungeon I was in and what bosses. But taking the time to get used to using Venom Skull, it will pay off in your DPS overall. But if you're having trouble with it, and you know, by all means, use Wrecking Blow. Swamp Raider won't be as effective, but it will still boost your some of your other abilities. But Venom Skull is definitely the reason why I put in the effort with Swamp Raider. Honestly, if you're not going to use Venom Skull, I would switch out Swamp Raider for maybe Briarheart or Hunting's Rage, New Moon, you know, something like that. Just a set that gives you a lot of weapon damage. So, that's just my personal opinion. You know, but practice makes perfect. So, as you saw, you know, it gets a little wonky, but with just practice, you can get that going off. So, Blighted Blast Bones. This is one of your big abilities. You summon a decaying skeleton from the ground after 2.5 seconds. The skeleton runs after the target and explodes when it gets close to them, dealing 15.6 disease damage to all nearby enemies and applying major defile to them for 4 seconds, reducing the healing received and health recovered by 30%. Create a corpse on death. This is a disease ability, poison ability, so Swamp Raider will bump both of these. Now, these are your main 2 abilities too. So, keep in mind on the Create a Corpse on death, because we're going to come back to that. Executioner. Spin around and strike an enemy, dealing 4.6k physical damage. Deals up to 400% more damage to enemies with less than 50% health. Now, I understand this says 50% health and it starts to become the Executioner. It becomes the Execute, but I really would not use this until the enemy gets to around 22 to 20%. Because it's just a huge difference. You know, if you start at 50% or if you start around 49%, because I know it says 50%, but that with less than 50%. So the Execute starts at 49%. So keep that in mind. It's not exactly at 50%. It's 49%. It's when it starts to do more. So it will hit, I've seen it at 49 around there. It's only going to hit for 16, 17. But once they get around 22% or so, when you're critting and stuff like that, it's going to hit for 40, 44k. When you've got your weapon damage proc, your weapon power pot proc, you know, it's going to hit for 44 instead of 20k. So it is better to go ahead and keep up the rotation and then start spamming this at the end. Because and when you get to that execute phase, this is what you're going to be using mostly. I mean, you can still keep this up and you can throw this in there if you want to, or have Endless Hell down, whatever, because you will still be throwing light attacks in between it. So Endless Hell can still help out. But for the most part, this will be the only ability you're using during execute phases. So definitely you want to wait until it is just that quick burn that you need. So you don't want to drop the other abilities at 49% for this ability that is not going to be doing that much. Because this Venom Skull, the third cast, I've seen it hit for 29k on a crit. And while this is doing 18, 20k on a crit, you know, you're not using this. So you don't have this up. You don't have this going. And you just lose a lot of DPS. And the reason why I'm harping on this or staying on this so much is because of the fact I've been in dungeons recently, even so much as today, where it's 50% or 70%, one of the two. Actually, it varied between two bosses. There was a Magic Templar using Radiant Destruction, which is their execute. Now, I understand it does more damage once they get to that certain percentage, but it's not going to be like that was all they were spamming. So that's the reason why I'm kind of staying on this right now, is because you don't want to let that drop off. You want to keep your other abilities up until the point to where your execute is the best. And the best is around that 22% mark. That's where you want it to be. So that's when you can start dropping everything else and just execute if you want to. It's not going to hurt much. So anyways, moving on. Sorry to go on that tangent. I just thought I'd get it out there because I do focus these videos more for the beginner player and stuff like that. And I just, you know, they were CP 200. I explained it to them. They were happy about it. They acknowledged it. They were like, yeah, it makes sense. Thank you. So that's why I kind of stayed on this. So detonating siphon. Violently drain the last spark of life from a corpse, dealing 21.2k disease damage over 12 seconds to all enemies around the corpse and between you and the corpse. When the siphon in, it causes the corpse to explode, dealing an additional 7.8k disease damage to all enemies around the corpse. This ability scales off your highest offensive stat, while slot your damage done is increased by 3%. Now that last part, increasing our damage, is the reason why we have it double barred. That's it. It's the only reason. Now, keep in mind, this is it's going to deal the damage over 12 seconds to all enemies around the corpse and between you and the corpse. Because I've seen people cast the corpse, because this is what it goes. Because when you start to fight, you're not going to have corpse. So you're going to do blast bones. It's going to go in and it's going to create a corpse. It's going to jump up and try to give them a hug, and you can hit that. And it starts everything. Alright, and it is a strong ability. But now I have seen people go in and use it, and it will connect to a corpse that is like right here. But they will be here with the boss, but the thing is back here. That main little poison line. You know, like you'll see the little area here. You know, this little area here. It's not on this boss. It's behind them. But keep in mind that as long as this line is in between them, they will take damage. They will take the damage from the proc as well. As long as they're in between that line, and they will explode and take the damage as well. So you don't have to worry about it if you don't actually connect to a target. If you don't connect to the target underneath the mob. As long as that line is going through the mob, you will be okay. Just keep that in mind. You know, it'll take a load off your mind. So because keep in mind, as long as it's around the corpse and between you and the corpse. So it's got to be that line. That's it. If they're not on that line, they're not taking the damage. So now we have Camouflage Hunter. We're not really using this for the first effect. While slotted, you gain Major Savagery, increasing your weapon critical rating by 2.1. You also gain Minor Berserk for 4 seconds after dealing critical damage from an enemy's flank, increasing your damage done by 8%. The critical rating is nice, even though we get that from our weapon power pots. You know, I have some Gold Coast Elixirs here. It does the same. But we have it here because this is going to give us Minor Berserk when we deal damage. You'll see it 3 seconds down there. It's the little red one next to the little pot symbol. Or let me hit it again. There it goes. You'll see it. That's minor berserk. The reason why I'm running this on my bar isn't necessarily for the proc for the major savagery, because we're going to get that from our essence of weapon power pots or your gold coast elixirs or whatever it is. I think those are about the only two that really gives it to you. But we're mainly using it for minor berserk. I don't know what it is, but in pugs these days, running random dungeons with random pickup groups, sometimes you're lucky if you get a healer. I've been in vet dungeons where we're pretty much 4 DPSing it, or I've been in normal dungeons where we're 4 DPSing it, or we're running 3 DPS in a tank, and nothing's wrong with that. A lot of times you will use that. And I have seen some healers, they don't use combat prayer, which isn't that big of a deal. If combat prayer doesn't help them keep you alive, I would rather stay alive and deal damage. But combat prayer gives you minor berserk. So having this equipped is making sure I get minor berserk. Now, if you do not want to run camouflage, let me go over here. If you do not want to run camouflaged hunter, there is a monster set if you don't have Velidreth or Selene's slime crawl. This gives us weapon crit, and it gives us minor berserk at all times, increasing your damage done by 8%. You would wear it just like the other monster set, medium divines or heavy divines with a medium shoulder or a heavy shoulder or a light. If you want the 5-1-1 setup. So, and that will give you minor berserk. You could take this off and put something else here, like Silver Leash or the protection circle from the Fire Guild. Doesn't matter, whatever it is. Now, we also have it here because the Fire Guild passive, we get 3% extra weapon damage for each Fire Guild ability slotted. We have 1. So I want 1 on the front bar. Or you can just have barb trap, double barred if that's what you want to do. So that's really why we have this here, is to make sure we have minor berserk. So if your healer is running combat prayer and you realize your tank is not running leashes or chains or whatever, put Silver Leash on. Pull the adds into you. It's stamina. You're good. Pop an orb after pulling in a few, or pop a shard, whatever. Get that resources back, or throw a heavy attack so you can pull the enemies in. It's not going to make a big difference. As long as you're using pots, you'll have major savagery. And then combat prayer is giving you minor berserk, or slime crawl is going to give you minor berserk. So this is definitely a flex spot, depending on how you run things and how you want to do things. So, or you can put vigor here on the front bar. Vigor will be higher because it's on your main hand. Now we have more weapon damage on a front bar than a back bar. Back bar, it's 13k. If we were to put it on our front bar real quick, it's 14.6. So 1.6k more healing. It's up to you. Now, Pestilence. This is our ultimate. We unleash a Pestilence Flesh Colossus to pulverize enemies in the area. The Colossus smashes the ground 3 times over 3 seconds, dealing 12.5k, 13.1, and 13.7k. Disease damage with the first, second, and third smash. Dealing damage applies major vulnerability to any enemy hit for 8 seconds, increasing their damage taken by 30%. Enemies hit cannot be affected again for 20 seconds. So basically, you can't chain this after 8 seconds. If you drop yours and the other Necro drops theirs, whether it's a tank Necro or healer, DPS, doesn't matter. Because like Warhorn, you can chain for the major force. Or major force. I hope that's right. For that extra damage. You can chain those together. There's no cooldown between these, but there is a cooldown between these. So 20 seconds has to be 20 seconds. So basically, after it's all, once you drop it, I would wait another 22 seconds at least. Give it that extra 22 seconds. If you're counting, count to 22. Just in case you count a little too fast. Now, these are disease slams. So again, this is increasing damage from our Swamp Raider. This is increasing this damage. So, and I think, honestly, this is one of the best ultimates in the game just due to major vulnerability. And also, this is me personally. If you want to do this a little different, you can. When I go into, whether I'm a Necro, or if I'm on some other class with my ultimate, or if I know I'm in group with a Necro, I do not drop this ult until about my second rotation. Mainly because I know I have my dots down, so they will get the full effect. Because if you drop this when you first run in, then you throw your blast bones, and then you drop your endless hell and your barb trap, and you bar swap, and you detonating or whatever, however you decide to do, however you start the fight, there's going to be about 3 to 4 seconds where all your dots are not up. So major vulnerability is really only going to benefit you for 4 seconds. So drop this. I would always drop this on your second rotation. once all your dots are down, and it's basically just a you rotating in order to keep the dots fresh and before you get back to your spam bubble. That is why I would wait. So that way you're getting the most out of the ability. Okay. Now, if you know you're running with somebody who is going to instantly run in and drop, I think the damages just kind of went down a little bit. I'm not sure about that. Now, if you know you're running with somebody who's instantly going to go in and drop their Destro ult, or they're going to drop Ballista, drop it. Because this is, you can pair this ult with any other ult in the game, almost. As long as it's, you know, like Ballista, the Destro ulti, Meteor, because it has a little dot after effect. You can do that with any of them. And they're going to lose a huge chunk of HP just off of them two combining. Because Ballista alone on most builds, it's going to be like a 90k dot for the most part. That's what it is. I think it's pretty much a dot. So this right here, if you know they're going to go in and instantly use Ballista or instantly use their Destro ult, drop this then. Because that extra 3 seconds on the Destro ult or whatever, it's going to make up for it. It's definitely going to make up a huge chunk of the damage that you would be missing. But if you're not for sure, you don't trust the person, if you're just more worried about your own DPS, drop this on your second rotation. So, Endless Out. Launch a multitude of arrows into the sky to rain down, dealing 1.4k physical damage to enemies in the target area every 1 second for 9 seconds after a 2-second delay. Now, I've seen a lot of people with this ability. Mine's level 1. I was using Arrow Barrage prior. I believe the full second of duration of this is 14 seconds. That's when she leveled up. But I've been using Arrow Barrage until recently, where I was spamming Venom Skull. I switched over to Endless Hell, and at full level, I want to say this duration is 14 seconds. I think 13 or 14 seconds. So I'm really bad though, because most of my other abilities are all leveled, except for Barb Trap. I have a bad habit of not really paying attention to what needs to be leveled up. So I turn in quests, I finish random dungeons on whatever bar I'm on. You definitely need to just let my screw ups be a lesson. Definitely make sure that you have this fully leveled up, because you will get the most out of the duration with this at rank 4 into 5, fully ranked. So just keep that in mind. If this is not fully ranked, just make sure you're turning in quests and stuff on the bar with this. Now, you can still use Arrow Barrage if you want to. It gives you more damage, but it is for 10 seconds. So you want this because of the fact, this also, you want to keep this up because it benefits from Maelstorm Arena. The bow, this is where it gets its proc from. This increases its damage due to the Maelstorm Arena bow, and even when you bar swap, it will stay consistent. So, now, there was something I wanted to point out with this ability. I don't remember, so we're just going to move along. Now, Skeletal Archer. Unearth a Skeletal Archer from the dart to fight by your side for 16 seconds. The Archer attacks the closest enemy every 2 seconds, dealing 2.6k physical damage. Each time the Archer deals damage, his next attack will deal 5% more damage than the previous attack. Creates a corpse on death. As you can see, this one and this one both are physical damage. It's not going to get the buff from Swamp Raider. But again, we're not going to be on our back bar very much, so it's just kind of there. So it's not that big of a deal because these are not our main abilities. This does a lot of damage due to Maelstrom, so it's not that big of a deal. But Skeletal Archer, physical damage, it does do a nice chunk of damage, but it's not really worth building around. So now, Resolve and Vigor. Let loose a battle cry, installing yourself with Resolve and Healing for 12.2 health over force. There is something weird. I could have sworn this was like 13k at the start of most of this. Yeah, and then it was like 14.6 if you put it on your front bar. I have noticed my damage numbers going down a little bit, and maybe that's what's throwing me off. I don't know. But either way, I'm going to rewind that after I finish this video and check for myself and make sure. If y'all want to rewind too and look, because I think I'm right, and nothing has changed. I'm still on my bar here, because I could have sworn these numbers went down as well. So, and nothing has changed. So, I don't know. Either way, I swear that went down about 700. Eloy, detonating siphon. Again, we have this on our front bar and our back bar. And then, you know, for the 3% damage. Now, I guess before I go on, Vigor, it's a heal. They did change this in the support line, or the assault line. You now get this at level 1 instead of level 5, if I'm not mistaken. Level 5, it used to be switched to level 1 or 2. You would get rapid maneuvers, and you would get Vigor at level 5. That, or level 4, I think it might be level 4. Level 4, level 5, one of the two. But that is now changed. Now you get Vigor at level 1, so that means all you've got to do is go into Cyrodiil. Even if you don't PvP, just go into Cyrodiil. You'll be greeted with somebody at the gate that's basically offering you a quest. You go talk to them. They'll tell you to go to way shrines, go talk to this person and that person, and they're just sending you around. They're basically kind of giving you a rundown on PvP or mechanics. You know, you have to repair a siege weapon. You have to fire a few siege weapons, ballistas, catapults, you know, and you get alliance points for that. By the time you finish all that, you know, you run it, you know, by the time you're done doing all the running and stuff like that, your alliance points, you should be level 3. So you will have Vigor instantly without ever actually having to go in and PvP or do any kind of battle with anybody, which is great, because I know a lot of people that didn't PvP, especially Stam Nightblades, they didn't PvP, so they didn't have a heal. They had to use two-handed to get rally, but they didn't like rally. They didn't like using two-handed. They felt like their damage was lower, and it probably was. But Vigor now is very easy to get. But if you just absolutely do not want to go into Cyrodiil for whatever reason, or let's say you've already, maybe you messed up, I don't know. Maybe something happened and you were not able to get Vigor first off the bat. You have other options for healing. You have Death Scythe. You can turn this into a stamina morph, and it could be like a quick little heal. You hit people in front of you, and you will heal for the damage. You know, it scales off your max HP, max health, even in stamina. It will heal you. Is it a great heal? No, but it's a quick little heal that can, you know, if you're being surrounded by enemies, you roll dodge, you hit the scythe, and you can go back to your rotation. It's a heal. It works. If you have enemies, you have Bitter Harvest here. This is pretty nice too. This will reduce the damage that you take by 3%. And on top of that, you regenerate ultimate and you heal per corpse. As you can see, you know, this is just the base. And sap the lingering life from fresh corpses, granting you 2 ultimate healing for 553 health every 1 second for 2 seconds per corpse consumed. This ability scales off your max health, while slot your damage taken is 3%. So, it's Magicka, so it will cost you Magicka, but it's not a big deal because you don't have any Magicka abilities on your bar. So if your heal's the only thing, it's not going to be a make or break situation. Now, if you don't want to use those, you know, if you don't want to rely on corpses on the ground and you don't like Scythe, you have other means. You have Life Amid Death. Now, you drop this, it's a big healing AoE for you, and it consumes a corpse, and it'll heal you and your allies in the area for 2.4k health over 5 seconds. But it will also, that's if you have a corpse. Again, if you don't want to rely on a corpse, it will still heal you for 2.5k in that area, just instantly, I believe. But I wouldn't necessarily use this one. I would recommend one of these two from the skill line here. Spirit Mender. Conjure a ghostly spirit to do your bidding and stay by your side for 16 seconds. The spirit heals you or the lowest health ally around you for every 2 seconds, restoring 1.4k health. Now, you know what? I'm just going to go through the morphs. Spirit Guardian here, the damage that you take is transferred to the spirit instead, and it will still heal you. Or you can get more healing from the Intensive Mender. It's up to you on whichever one you want to do. Now you have Restoring Tether. Basically, what this does is that it will tether you to a corpse, healing you for 13.4k health over 12 seconds to yourself and all allies between. You know, if I'm on my front bar, it's 15.2 health over 12 seconds to yourself and all allies between you and the corpse. Ability scales off your highest offensive stat, while slot your healing done is increased by 3%, so the healing will be higher. So, I wouldn't necessarily trust that because as we've seen, some of my numbers have been dipping and dropping. I can't explain that. So, take that healing with a grain of salt. But Braided Tether also heal allies in the radius around you, or Mortal Coil, you restore stamina while siphoning the corpse. If you're having trouble with sustaining as well, this is nice to have. You also restore 1.1k stamina over 12 seconds while siphoning the corpse, while slot your healing done is increased by 3%. So if you're having trouble sustaining, you can replace Vigor with Mortal Coil. That would be my choice as a replacement, is Mortal Coil. You know, but if you're more solo, it might not be as better for you. The Spirit Guardian might be better for you because they're going to take some of the damage from you. I think it's 10%. Yeah, 10% of the damage you take is transferred to the Spirit instead. So if you're more solo, Spirit Mender. It's great. It heals you and it takes some of the damage from you. If you're running in groups where you can just kind of throw a heal out, let's say you're running Taint 3 DPS, or you get in a group where your healer just, you don't know what they're doing. Restoring Tether will be nice because it will allow you to restore resources while healing you in the same time frame. And if you're in a group without a tank, Spirit Mender, again, you know, each one, you know, it's good to have both, you know, if just to have them unlocked if you need to, if you don't have Vigor. I like Vigor, period. That is my choice. But if you don't have Vigor, either one of these can work, and both of them have their advantages in different situations. So just bear in mind, there's more ways to heal than just Vigor on a stamina character, at least with the Stam Necro. So, and then we have Barb Trap on our back bar. Again, this is another ability, but I think it's pretty much there. You're going to set a sharpened blade trapped at your location, which takes 1.5 seconds to arm and lasts for 1 minute. When triggered, the trap deals 3.8k physical damage, an additional 13.5 physical damage over 16 seconds, and grants you minor force, increasing your critical damage by 10% for the duration. Now, minor force is why we have it mostly. We want that extra critical damage, plus with the shadow, it does amazing. Now again, this is physical damage, so Swamp Raider is not going to buff it, but it's not that big of a deal because we're not really using it for the damage. We're mostly just using it to gain minor force. Now, you get this at Fighters Guild 6, I want to say. Yeah, Fighters Guild, or no, might be Fighters Guild 8. It's one of the two. It is a pretty far, it's one of the last skills you get, so you might not have this right off the bat. And if you don't have this off the bat, minor force is really important. You can always replace Swamp Raider, like I said, if you're not really using Swamp Raider, you know, with Venom Skull, replace Swamp Raider with Griffin's Ferocity. Griffin's Ferocity's got a nice buff as well to where you get minor force for 10 seconds for just dealing direct damage. So it works out nicely. And you won't have to worry about having Barb trapped until you get your Fighters Guild to that certain level. So it works. So there's multiple ways to supplement for this as well. Starting out, you know, Griffin's Ferocity, replace Swamp Raider, or replace Widowmaker with it until you get Widowmaker and you get your, you know, Swamp Raider and Griffin's Ferocity. You will be absolutely okay. That can help you farm fighters, zombies and stuff to get your Fighters Guild up, to get Barb Trap to where then you can replace Griffin's Ferocity, or you can just keep Griffin's Ferocity or replace Griffin's Ferocity with Warband from Frostfall. So multiple scenarios. And then we have Pestilent Colossus again on our back bar. We're not going to use this on our back bar because of the damage. You know, we want the damage from the front bar. But I have it on the back bar because of the fact of the passives and the Grey Lord. When the enemy is below 25% health, we gain 10% for each graveyard slot. We increase our critical chance by 10%. We have 30% here. So although we have pretty much 50% now, when it gets to execute phase, when we switch to our back bar or around 25% health, we will have 80%. And then when we're on our front bar, we're going to have 90%. So that's the reason why this is pretty much going to crit always at that point. So if you wanted to, you could put Pestilence on, you could put Ballista on the back bar, which is the Bowl Ultimate if you wanted to. But I really don't see any reason why you wouldn't use Pestilence, to be honest with you. This is one of the best ultimates in the game. Well, I guess I should say that's my opinion, but I don't know too many people that would disagree. And maybe there's a lot. I'm not sure. If you disagree with me, let me know what ultimate. Let me know your top 3 ultimates in the comment section. Because personally, mine, Pestilence, Ballista, and I would say the Destro ult, honestly. It'd be my top 3. And Destro ult does a lot of damage, so does Meteor. So that one's kind of a toss-up. But yeah, I think for pure damage and effect, I think Ballista for pure damage, and with the effect of major vulnerability, I think Pestilence Colossus here, probably the top 2. But I could be wrong. Let me know what you think. So, but yeah, okay. So if we fully buff up, you'll see our damage and our recovery here. Our recovery is, this should be higher than that. Oh, our food wore off. Makes sense. Okay. Recovery is 1.7. Our weapon damage is 3.5, and this is without the arrow barrage buff. So while we still have Minor Force from the pots, I think. Yeah. We're going to go ahead and get this procced. Get that going. So we're at 4.1 weapon damage total. Okay. 1.7 stam recovery, and the rest of the stats is pretty much the same. Like I said, your crit, if you dual wield, your crit will be higher with a dagger and an axe. So just keep that in mind. You can, I think 51 with the dagger and an axe, or 52, somewhere around in there, will be what it is. And if you have one precise, you'll have even more crit. So, you know, you have other ways to get that up if you don't like it being at 49%, but I haven't had too much of an issue. Especially during the execute phase, that's where your crit mostly matters. It's because you want this shadow to give you as much damage as possible at 15, and we're pretty much getting that extra 40% from our passives. So 50% crit for right now is perfectly fine with me. If it was any higher, I would probably be over capping. So during execute phase, which isn't bad. So now, like I said, for the pots, you know, I've got Gold Coast Elixir here. Is what I was using. I think I had some bound, like 25 bound. So I was kind of messing around with it. But weapon power pots, it gives you major savagery, major brutality, and it increases your stamina recovery and gives you stamina back. You know, basic weapon power pots. Ghost Coast Elixir does the exact same. So if you have some of these lying around from chests, from crown crates or whatever, they work identical. You know, it gives you stamina, major endurance, increase your stamina recovery by 20% for 36.3 seconds. Also grants major brutality, major savagery, increase your weapon damage by 20%, weapon critical by 2.1 for 36.3 seconds. Now, we already have major savagery from, or not major savagery, but yeah, major savagery from Camouflage Thunder. So it's not a big deal. So these, you know, it was just something I was kind of messing around with when I went and tried this out in PvP. So, you know, heal, give me major expedition, and unstoppable for 8 seconds. Couldn't be immune, knockback, disabling effects. This was kind of fun. If you PvP a lot or like to go PvP, this is definitely pretty fun to have. That extra speed and stuff. And Widowmaker was amazing in PvP. I just put on Fortified Brass to be a little tanky all-in pin. That's pretty much my setup. I also replaced Selene's with Bloodspawn. So, or not Selene's, but Velidreth with Bloodspawn. So, yeah. So, rotation. Starting out, you're going to buff up. You know, you're going to hit your weapon power pot, but I'm just going to hit trash pot. Now you're going to pretty much go in, trap, get that going, siphon, get that going again, and then you'll just, you don't have to hit the run button, and then just keep your rotation. 16 seconds. You can overcast if you want to with the barbed trap, but the main thing is to make sure you have your corpses going off at all times. And instead of doing 3 rotations or whatever, at this point I'm just kind of goofing off, you're going to keep your pestilence down. You know, like I said, do your pestilence on the second rotation, and it does quite a bit. So as you can see, alright, there, that's exactly where I want it. Okay, so as you can see, Executioner, go down. At 49%, it's going to hit, not for much, not for very much. 3.6, you know, doesn't hit very hard. But also, let me put my poisons back on for Widowmaker. Oh, in combat. You can see a little bit of this. You can see the damage that the poisons do from, though it goes off with Widowmaker. The damage is just lethal. So, light attack. We want to get this poisons procced. Nothing ever works when you want it. There it goes. Just spore goes off, and you can just see those numbers piling up. It's ridiculous. It's brutal. So let me see. Alright. Let me wait a second or two. There we go. Should go off again. There it goes. Spore spawns. As you can see. There you go. So it took off 2% by itself. So combine that with the rest of your stuff. It's going to be, it's destructive. Very, very brutal. So now I'll show you this real quick with the execute Let's get it down to execute range real quick. As you can see, when we were just spamming it, it wasn't doing as much. Okay, we want to get it to about 24% here. Alright, I think with, oh, nope, I thought the detonate would do it. Okay. Alright, now let's take these poisons off after it stops. I can show you what I was talking about with the execute. Come on, come on. Normally don't go over this much, but alright. So as you can see, when we was doing this earlier, when it was at 49% to 47, 48, it was only hitting for like 7k, 4k. You know, it wasn't much. Wasn't very much at all. So as you can see now, 20.5 on a crit, 21, 21.4, 21.9. And it's going to keep hitting harder as it gets lower because it's going to get stronger. 23.2, 23.7. And of course, I'm not buffed, so I don't have my weapon. I don't have my procs and stuff like that going off right now. So when you're in dungeons and you've got that dungeon buff, you've got Illyrium, whatever, you can see 27k. You know, 27. It went from being 7k to 22k, 28.8, 29.3, and that is unbuffed. Now, of course, when you're buffed, it's going to do more. But you don't. That's what I'm saying. You don't want to just start railing this off at 49% as soon as you don't want to start railing off your execute as soon as it tells you you can, because the damage that you're going to do is nowhere near what it will be when you actually get to that 22% mark, whatever it is. You know, whenever you start 22, 20, 18, you know, 15%, whatever it is, it will be more. So just keep that in mind, because like I was harping on the execute, you know, just keep that in mind. Just because it tells you it will do more damage at 50% doesn't mean, or once it's under 50%, doesn't mean you should stop with your other abilities and start using that. Because trust me, I see it a lot from Templars. Like I said, Templars using the Radiant Destruction, or Magic Sorcerer spamming Fury, or Nightblade's execute ability. It happens a lot. Just because it says the damage, it does that damage there, they just stop and start trying to execute. But that is not necessarily the execute phase. The execute phase is about 22% to 20, you know, depending on the boss. You know, or depending on what you're looking at. If you're in a trial and the boss, you know, at 20% still has, you know, 18 million health or something like that, that's not the execute phase. Execute phase would be more around 15% there, you know. But during just bosses and dungeons in general, the execute range will be around 20%, 22, 20%. Just keep that in mind if you have an execute ability. And like I said, sorcerers don't have one built in. So, you know, this is from the two-handed ability line. If you don't want to use two-handed ability, just use two-handed. And if you want to use another ability here to replace this, use, you go twin slashes. It's a nice little dot that you can put on. It's not going to get buffed by Swamp Raider, but it is a nice little dot that you can use. Or you can just put another grave ability here. You know, you can put Skeletal Archer on your front bar. Or, you know, Spirit Mender, whatever. Restoring Tether, if you want, you know, whatever. You have options here if you don't want to use this, because you're really only going to use this during the execute phase. So this is pretty much an open a slot if you're dual wielding instead of two-handing. But if you go dual wield, I would recommend Rending Slashes. So, but yeah, let me know. I'm loving this new setup. The old setup works just as well. I mean, I think Pillar of the Nern set that I was running previously got a nice buff as well. But I was just having so much fun with Widowmaker and Swamp Raider that I wanted to show that off on the Necro this time around. So, but don't worry. I think I'm using Pillar of Nern on another class that I will be doing a video on later. And I will go over that as well, because I'm absolutely loving that buff as well. So let me know what sets, if you like these, if you want to see more casual stuff. Don't forget to like and subscribe, or tell me to go fuck myself in the comment section, whatever works for you. If you have any sets that you think I should try out that got buffed, that you know you absolutely love, let me know. I love to hear that as well, because I love sets. I love, like, bank. I've got all these. They're loaded up with all kinds of sets that just either don't get run as much on a tank, or healer sets. I mean, I think it's this one here. You can see how much I've Twilight, Infallible, Illyrium. I've had a lot of fun trying out just different sets on tanks in general, on DPS as well, on healers. You know, I'm one of those. So if you got any advice or if you got any recommend sets that you'd like me to give me a try, let me know in the comment section. So thank you for tuning in and watching. And so until next time, have a great day.